All right, so good morning to you. We just saw the fight to end blackouts, and you would have seen as part of that intro as well the word BRICS coming up as well. A bit of a BRICS hangover, I think, for a lot of people, perhaps a bit of BRICS fatigue, but certainly one of the big takeaways was the plans around electricity in our country. Remember, within that grouping of countries, it's all about the economies. How do the economies work with each other? How do the economies help other economies grow, etc.? And right now, ours is not very good if you look at us versus every other country in the BRICS bloc because, and this is a big issue, a lot of it being blamed on the blackouts, on the load shedding in our country. It affects jobs, it affects production, it affects manufacturing, which then, of course, affects the economy. So what has government done? They've signed a number of agreements with Chinese companies during BRICS. As well, we're told this is going to end blackouts, or some would suggest at least mitigate the severe impact of blackouts. So let's find out if that actually is the case. Energy expert, Professor Hartmut Winkler, making time for me. Prof, good to have you back on ENCA. Is this the silver bullet? Is this the hat in the? Is this the magic box that's going to get us out of blackouts?
I think what South Africans have to understand that there is no magic bullet. Many promises have been made, many announcements have been made, but ultimately all of those things can only help a little bit at a time. The electricity crisis is of such a nature that you can't, no single individual or no single entity or even other country can just come in and fix it overnight. We're in it for a long haul. I still think that we're going to have power problems for another 5 years or so, although hopefully not nearly as severe as now. And as much as the Chinese have been extraordinarily successful at running their own electricity sector and reforming it from an intensively coal-using country into something which has a very large share of renewables these days, I don't think they're going to find it quite as easy as that either, should they be the ones who really move in as much as people seem to think they are. Yeah. I think it's more likely that they're just going to be setting up business relationships. And given that we, in any case, already use a lot of Chinese technology, I think that the change to be expected is probably not as big as people might think it is.
A lot of criticism since last we spoke, Prof, because you and I spoke last week just as BRICS was starting to wrap up and we saw the signing of these documents, whatever these documents were, with these various Chinese companies. I see a lot of reaction from the IPP sector, criticizing government by signing those contracts so quickly and so visibly in the public eye, yet there's still so much red tape with the IPPs, which many suggest is actually the real solution. If we can get our IPP contracts in place, if we can get that rolled out properly, we wouldn't actually need the Chinese. What do you make of that?
Yes, well, whatever the Chinese are going to be doing, they're still going to have to be playing in the same space as IPPs and any other entity that wants to take part in the South African electricity sector. If one just simply were to award contracts to Chinese companies, I'm pretty sure that would be struck down by the courts. So I think the IPPs are right in a sense. It's not only them, but we do still need to make it a lot easier to set up a new electricity generating capacity. I think what's really made a huge difference, that's probably why we're not as badly off this winter as we were 6 months ago or a year ago, is that there has been this deregulation in a sense that people are now able to just set up their own facilities at home or in their factories or wherever they happen to be. I think that's made things a lot easier. Otherwise, I do think that we would now be at stage 6 and not stage 3, as I believe we are now.
So when it comes to, as you say, many people making it easier for themselves, they've gone off the grid, not just individuals, but large corporations, as well, car manufacturers, etc., taking a lot away from the demand on the grid, even one of the mines having gone nearly all solar. It does make a big difference. If we're now seeing such a reduction in demand, Prof, if we're just not using as much electricity as we were before, why are we still getting blackouts? Why are we still getting breakdowns? Is this not supposed to help with the maintenance issue by reducing the load?
Yes, well, if all the new solar that's been installed in the last year or so is at best going to make up for about 2 stages of load shedding. As much as there's many panels around, they are all rather small. Plus, they only operate on average in this country for 8 hours a day. So it just means that in order to make a real dent, one probably needs to increase the number we've got here now tenfold, which is, by the way, what China has done. Yeah. So they've, in a sense, shown the way. They are well ahead of their plans. They have a 2030 plan to reach a very high target of new power generating capacity. They already think they're going to be finished with that in 2025. So maybe that's also part of the thinking on the Chinese side, is that they're saying that, well, we are running so fast now. What are we? We're going to be running short of work soon. So let's see if there's somewhere else in the world where we can establish ourselves.
Like an employment expansion, if you will, because they're so efficient at what they do. Prof, I want to ask you before I let you go as well. So you spoke about this. It's not a silver bullet with these companies being signed into whatever these agreements are. We're still waiting for exact details. The other issue I wanted to ask post-BRICS is the 700 million rand from China to South Africa. I think I mentioned this last time. No such thing as a free lunch. I think we can all agree on that. There's going to be conditions somewhere. But can blackouts be reduced? I never want to use the word end, because I think you've been clear on that. It's not going to just suddenly end. But how much of an impact will 700 million rand make just by throwing more money at the problem? Is that the solution?
Well, what I gather is that some of those donations, for example, happen to be for batteries and other technology that can put in schools, hospitals, and police stations, which was one of the issues we had earlier this year, where which suffer the most during this load shedding situation. So I think what happened is that the minister, when he went to China a few months ago, just simply said, look, these are the sort of things that we're going to need. Can you help us at all? And yes, China manufactures those plenty. So they probably just said, okay, well, we can give you some of those to ease the situation at hospitals and so on.